Hey everyone, Boardgame Brody here with Meeple Mountain. I have a new prototype copy of Hippocrates, a Euro game coming to Kickstarter by Game Brewer. I was very interested in this game given the theme as I work in the medical field, but also that the game is coming out by Game Brewer as they produce a lot of these medium weight games that I personally love. For others, the theme might not be as enticing, but we know that as a Euro game, we know it all comes down to its gameplay and the mechanics that it uses. So let's see if the game shines or not. Hippocrates is a medical simulation game of hiring doctors and treating patients. Both doctors and patients are represented by tiles and are gained through the mechanics of the game. Players will do well in the game if they manage their doctors, paying them their compensation for the good work that they provide, and also helping them complete their contracts. Players will need to also pick up patients that can be treated by those doctors before they can move from the examination room to the emergency room, and if they don't get the help that they need, to the afterlife, giving that player negative points at the end of the game. On top of managing patients and doctors, you will need to purchase medicine kits that also match what your doctor uses and what your patients need. The players who do all these in the most efficient way will live up to the great teachings of Hippocrates and is declared the winner of the game. Let's get into the specifics of the game and see if this Euro game lives up to its name. You can see the game is set up and looks like this at the beginning of the game. On the top of the board, you will find two different places to recruit doctors. Players will have an opportunity to hire 2 doctors per round, paying their costs listed on the right side of that tile. Below this section of doctors are tiles that represent medicine kits. Players will purchase these to take medicine vials for doctors to use to help treat patients. These are the knowledge tiles, and they will give bonuses of various types to players who decide to purchase a bundle by hiring a doctor and purchasing a medicine kit all in one turn. These are the patients that will be drafted in a way for players to treat. Depending on the dice roll or if a player uses any assistance, and depending on the player order that the players use to draft, that patient that you could treat the best might or might not still be available. Each player will also have their own player board to place their drafted patients. Patients start in the exam room, but if not treated completely in that round, they will move to the emergency for their last chance to be treated before they pass into the afterlife. Player boards also house the assistant tokens that help players draft patients outside the game's general rules. The game is played in 4 rounds, and each round consists of 5 phases. The first phase is all about getting patients, as the temple of Asclepius is full of people hoping to receive treatment from someone who is as close to as good as Hippocrates was. The first player will take the 6 dice and roll them, matching them with its color and the result in each column. The patient tiles with the die next to them are the only available patients to draft at this time. When taking a patient, you will gain or lose any reputation, medicine, money, or victory points indicated on that space, and also take any bribes present on top of that tile. Players will take turns welcoming patients by placing their marker in the section where they want to welcome a patient from. While players place their marker to take patients, they are also choosing player order to draft for the next patient. Players will draft 3 patients each round by re-rolling the dice and resetting the markers each time, showing the new draft order according to the last. If you choose a column where the die is in a location with no patient next to it, as it was previously taken, the player will be able to take 4 money or 2 money and an assistant instead. If a player wants to use an assistant, they can choose to spend it and move the die to a patient that they want, obeying the type of assistant token that they are using. This type of assistant will let a player move their die from one region to any other in the same row. This one will move the die vertically up or down in the same region, and this one allows you to take the patient on top of the stack of the same region instead of the one next to the die. Assistants are gained when a player takes a patient from columns 2, 4, or 6. The players will take the matching assistant and place it on their board, and a player can only have one of each assistant at a time. After each player has had 3 opportunities to draft patients, players will take the money indicated on the patient tiles that they drafted from the bank, representing the payments made by those patients. Get that money while you can, because in the next round, players will need to pay their doctors because they employ them in their clinics. Payment depends on the player's position on the reputation track. If you don't have enough money to pay your doctors, then those doctors will leave and they won't be able to treat patients and earn you any points. To know how valuable a doctor is, you will need to understand its tiles. It shows their initial cost and the victory points that you earn when the doctor completes all of its contracts here on the right. Contract spots are shown on certain sides of the tile, listing the type of medicine that doctor can treat with. These spots will have notches to help connect that contract to a patient. If there is a notch that doesn't picture any medicine, then you won't have to use that notch to complete all the contracts for that doctor. The third phase is the recruitment phase, where players will have 2 chances to hire new doctors. Players will first take turns choosing whether or not they want to take one of the region-free doctors. These doctors are the ones on top. Players can pay 2 money to place their option token on top of an available doctor, receiving it, of course, at a later time. If at that time the player decides to hire that doctor, then that 2 money that they paid will be deducted from the initial hiring cost. Players will then decide to either hire one of the regional doctors, purchase a medicine kit, or buy a bundle with a doctor and a medicine kit, and also receive a free knowledge tile. Or, if a player doesn't want to do any of those, they can pass and do nothing. Doctors will cost the initial cost shown on the tile, and the player will take the tile and place it in front of them. Medicine kits are purchased for a cost as well, and the player will take the listed vial shown on that tile. If bundling, the player pays for the doctor and the medicine kit in the same column, and then they will receive a free knowledge tile that will help in one way or another. These tile abilities are listed on the back of the rulebook, but they are a one-time effect bonus. After this step, players will decide to hire the doctors that they optioned for earlier, paying the cost minus the 2 that they already paid. Hopefully you planned well and got a second doctor that you hopefully needed, because if not, then you just paid 2 coins for nothing. The recruitment zone for all the doctors are then reset. All the doctors still in the region free zone are discarded. The remaining face-up doctors will shift clockwise, filling in spots in the region-free zone, and if any regional doctors are still left face-up, then you will discard the doctor in the rightmost space of the region-free zone and continue moving the doctors clockwise. The stacks of regional doctors will then be flipped over during the recruitment phase of the next round. Players will now treat their patients by pairing that patient up with one or more doctors that have the specific medicine needed to help that patient. You will need to fully treat a patient to take them off your player board and treat them. You'll place the number and type of vials needed to heal that patient on top of that patient tile. Extra vials can also always be exchanged for 2 money, or a player can always pay 3 money to gain a needed vial. In addition, assistant tokens can be used in place of a vial or 2 money, and a knowledge token can be exchanged for any 1 vial. Doctors and patients can be freely arranged and oriented into groups so doctors can treat the most patients, fulfilling contracts while patients are getting the treatment that they need. These groups, however, cannot be moved around in future rounds, so only the new doctors and the new patients gained during this round can you move around where you want. The last phase of the round is going to have you move your untreated patients in the emergency room to go down 1 step into the afterlife, giving you a -3 points for each patient here at the end of the game. All the patients in the exam room will then move to the emergency room. Each player will then move up on their reputation track by the number of patients that were treated this round. Each treated patient will earn you victory points shown on their tile. that player will move their score marker up on the score track, discard all the vials used to treat that patient, and will flip that tile over. This tile will stay out until that doctor is done with all their contracts. Each doctor that does have all their contracts completed will then score the points shown on the doctor tile, and that doctor is retired and is discarded from the game. Any face-up patient tiles connected to that doctor will also be discarded unless it is connected to another doctor tile with uncompleted contracts. The game is played by having the players repeat these 5 phases 4 times, placing new medicine kits out each and every round to help with planning. And at the end of the 4th round, a player can then treat their remaining patients in the emergency room with any available medicine, but will not score any victory points for doing so. But you might want to do this because for each untreated patient remaining in the emergency room gives you a negative point for each patient. Players will also lose 3 points for each patient that they have in the afterlife, and whoever has the highest score has definitely lived up to the teachings of Hippocrates and wins the game. The game is kind of a balancing act where you need to have certain types of patients, certain doctors who can actually treat those patients, and enough money to buy the vials of medicine so that the doctor can treat that patient. Timing tends to be important because when you draft a patient, you only have 2 rounds to get them treated fully, or else they pass on and give you negative points. Not only do you need to treat patients in a timely manner, but you need to time out your doctors so that you can complete their contracts in a good amount of time as well. Money becomes important because you will gain some when you pick up new patients, but money will then need to be allocated to hire doctors or buy medicine. You might be drafting patients to come into your exam room, but using that money to then pay or hire a doctor that will most likely treat a different patient. And then you will need to come back to that original patient using money gained in other ways. So you are juggling your money, your patients, your doctors, and medicine the entire game. It seems like the player who can match up patients to doctors and allocate their money and medicine to the best areas, trying as much as possible to buy in bundles to gain extra bonuses, gaining those knowledge tiles, those players are going to probably do better in the game than those that might focus on just one patient at a time and not planning for the future and not growing their practice as much as the others are. The game's components in this prototype look pretty amazing already, and knowing Game Brewer and their previous titles, I would expect the same high quality components seen in those games will be seen here. I will mention that a 2-player game and a 4-player game are actually pretty similar. Like in a 2-player game, the game will still take out random patients during the draft using the other colored markers, and the doctors will get pulled out trying to mimic the same flow that is seen in a 4-player game. So the design is pretty good as far as a 2-player game compared to a 4-player game. The game also includes a solo variant and is different than the multiplayer game, but the game looks to include a competitive playthrough of the game while still trying to outscore the non-human players. Ultimately, I feel like the game is a great medium weight game. It feels very similar to the weight of Gugon, so not super heavy, pretty straightforward rules without getting confused, and the game can be played quicker and quicker after playing it a couple times. The game also gets the brain working enough for the game to be very much enjoyable. If you like medium weight games that require you to juggle things around where one thing might affect many others, then I hope you get this game to your table. So make sure that you take the teachings of Hippocrates to treat your own patients through science and diagnostic knowledge with your family and friends in Hippocrates by Game Brewer. Again, this is Boardgame Brody. I hope you enjoyed this video. Stick around and check out some other board game reviews to see what you might want to get to the table.